let's finish off our Bad Batch episode 11 discussion with, as we have the last 4 or 5 weeks speculation towards next week. And as we kind of last week were really spitballing. Last week it seemed like a one-off thing that had nothing really to do with the rest of the show, just kind of another interesting mission, another look at separatist worlds, and a little look at maybe possibly some future rebellion leaders. But this episode not only gives us a glimpse of main characters that we know are heavily involved with the rebellion, but also gives us a genuine cliffhanger where Hera has to escape a big firefight and arrest of her parents, and now she's on the run with Chopper, and we don't know what's going to happen next. The episode just ends, and it's probably the biggest cliffhanger we've gotten in the Bad Batch thus far. And there's a lot of ways we can speculate it. As I said earlier, I do think this just leads to the Bad Batch being called to help Hera. I think she's going to be rescued by the Bad Batch, and they're going to attempt to rescue her father and mother. That's probably going to be eventually how her mother dies. I would guess that Chopper and Hera will eventually escape, be taken to somebody. Cham will probably be left on the planet, or decide to stay on the planet to fight the Imperials, and he's going to go back into hiding and doing guerrilla warfare, kind of like he did pre-Empire and during the Clone Wars when the Separatists invaded. So I think that'll be an angle. I think we'll get more Crosshair versus Bad Batch stuff. Hopefully a little bit more on the storyline between them, or at least it gets Crosshair kind of after them again, so we get more and more of him, because I'm really interested in seeing him. And we're not going to get this next episode, but hopefully with the reintroduction of Admiral Rampart, we get back to the Stormtrooper storyline, because we've basically ignored that since the 3rd episode of the show. When that was the first 3 episodes were very heavy on clones are outdated and we need Stormtroopers. And now we're only seeing clones around, and we haven't heard anything about Stormtroopers. We saw those 3 Stormtroopers that are still in Crosshair's unit, but we haven't seen any other Stormtroopers nor any mentions of Stormtroopers since. So I would love for this to, with Hauser and with Cham and Hera and all these elements of the rebellion and early clone fugitives and stuff like that, being a part of what we'd expect to be, I would guess, the finale to this arc next week. Hopefully it starts to build a little bit towards some of that resolution with Crosshair and the inhibitor chips and the future of the Stormtroopers and stuff like that as we end this season. Because I'm still on the boat of the end of this season is going to resolve the Crosshair stuff and is going to give us a little bit more towards the future of the clones and the Stormtroopers. But I don't think we're going to fully resolve most of these plot lines. Obviously not the rebellion, because the rebellion's just beginning. And I don't know if Hera will show up in the rest of this season. I doubt it. But what are your thoughts and some of your speculations on what next week might entail as we get to episode 12?
Obviously, we're going to be back on Ryloth. I think we have to see this whole thing carried through. I don't want to just stop in between, and that'd be disappointing if that happens. But, I mean, it's interesting you mentioned Crosshair, because it gets me thinking, like, this is the guy who pulled the trigger, right? This is probably his best shooting performance all season. He's done pretty well for himself. As you can see, he delicately shot the senator and made it seem like, oh man, like he got shot at by Cham Syndulla in an assassination attempt. But he is the trigger man. He's not the one pulling the strings here. I think Rampart's role in this episode was very much like, okay, no, they got his corner. Let's surrender. But he had his cards to play. He had Crosshair on the ridge overlooking them. He had a lot of different things, and he captured everyone. What they thought was just going to be, freedom of Hera and Gobi. I mean, it turned out into being like, just a trap to bring even more of the leadership under control, right? We got senators out of commission. We got the people's hero arrested for treason. right? And along with his family, I mean, he has them exactly where they want. But I don't think Ryloth obviously is fully under Imperial control. Is it? Is it in under Imperial control in Lords of the Sith or
It's under Imperial control, but Cham attacks them a
Cham?
lot.
Yeah, Cham attacks them a lot. Right. So Cham is undoubtedly gonna be escaping. Maybe with his wife, maybe without his wife. We don't really know quite yet. Um, I don't know if Hera's gonna be back on Ryloth immediately. I feel like it feels like she will stay on Ryloth either for a little bit longer before she joins the larger rebellion, or she's gonna have to go off world and meet up with Omega again. But the one thing I think I'm sure of is that, once Cham kind of like frees himself, gets out of trouble, and there's more scrutiny placed on Rampart and this failure on Ryloth to, on taking probably the most free fighting worthy people off of the galaxy at this moment in time, and stopping them, which was great. And then now all of a sudden they're back in the fight against the Empire now and fighting even harder than ever before, right? And more guerrilla tactics instead of just trying to survive and get supplies. Now they're like, no, we're gonna fight for the freedom of our people again. I would think that a lot of the blame from the top leadership is going to be directed towards the failures of Rampart, and Rampart will, as he's shown already, not take too kindly to that, and he, in my mind, will pin the blame on a lot of the clones, the failures of the clones to, keep Syndulla. He's going to probably blame Hauser if Hauser becomes a sacrificial lamb. If he escapes, even more so on Hauser and saying, look, yet another rogue clone. And then he'll look at, and when leadership is trying to, manage how this story comes out, that now Cham and the Free Rally movement is back stronger than ever, right? Even though this is an Imperial world now, I think we're going to see him also push Crosshair into a more position of like, whoa, this was an actions of a rogue clone. I had nothing to do with this. He almost tried to. In truth, it was actually Crosshair who actually tried to kill him. I could see Crosshair and his story ending because so far, he's been like that vicious clone leading the elite stormtroopers. He's done what the Kaminoans wanted. He got messed up, right? But he's still in this fight. He's extremely loyal to the Empire. He is the best of what clone trooper with maxed out inhibitor chip looks like, and is working to the Kaminoans' favor of at least keeping this majority of the troops still be clone troopers. But if a rogue clone dies or escapes and joins Rex, and you see the Bad Batch appear once more, and then you see the fallout of this Ryloth, kind of being not 100% controlled by the Empire. And I can only see the one loose and the one clone that they have full control over being Crosshair, and I can see Rampart just making him a scapegoat. And I can see that really push. I can see that really push Crosshair because he's got full control, program loyalty, but maybe seeing him drop down from being a leadership position to a lower under one of his own elite troops, or maybe going on trial. These different things I think will really kind of make him snap. I think the inhibitor chip can only hold a man down so long, and it only works when things go the way that they're meant to, not when further complication is added onto whatever Crosshair's feeling. I don't think in any way manipulating his inhibitor chip to whatever full potential it has is going to be good for his brain chemistry in any way, especially after being implanted at birth and then being adjusted when he's 20 something. So I think a lot of these later episodes are going to deal with the fallout of Ryloth, and then the fallout that's blamed on the clones, and eventually on most especially on Crosshair. Outside of that, I don't know.
That's an interesting angle I didn't think about with Crosshair becoming a scapegoat for Rampart's failures. I think that would be really interesting, and I hope we continue to see Rampart throughout the rest of this season, because he has been one of the more intriguing new characters that we've seen. I think the other thing I was thinking about was that I completely forgot what I was just gonna say, but Crosshair Crosshair is gonna be interesting to see how they play out next episode, because I feel like you can only fail capturing the Bad Batch so many times, and if the Bad Batch are there and everyone realizes they're there and they're chasing after them and he doesn't get them, then I could see that being kind of the way that the rest of Crosshair's season goes, is like he's hell-bent on getting the Bad Batch to prove he's still top dog as we get closer to Stormtroopers. I think that's something, I would really like to see, as well as just hopefully we continue to push this story closer and closer to Kamino and what the finale is going to be, because I'm very intrigued to see what Hera has to do with a lot of this. I don't think she'll be in the rest of the season. Obviously, there is that connection with Omega and Hera's kind of been one of those characters that they've put in a ton of different media to just kind of be the connection between Rebels and all these other things. Because she meets Aphra in the comics. She's in the Squadrons game. She's in the Kieran Gillen run of Star Wars comics. She shows up in all these random things as just kind of the bridge to the Rebels show. And so I'm wondering if they're just going to use her like that, or if she continues to come back and constantly be a part of this and be a representation of the show in basically what is a Clone Wars show, but she is the representation of Rebels in the Clone Wars show as we get closer and closer to the Rebels side. I would love a Rebels style animation that takes place maybe 5 years after Bad Batch, once the Bad Batch is over, and then we get that true, like a prologue to Rebels and an epilogue to Bad Batch. That would be really cool if they kind of merged. Thanks so much for watching this segment of the Star Wars Lads podcast. If you enjoyed this content, please like the video by clicking the thumbs up button down below, and subscribe to our channel for new Star Wars content every single week. If you want to watch our full discussion, click the video on the left. Or if you want to check out one of our other awesome videos, click the video on the right.